Well, it's hunting season and I should be out in the woods, but I'm not. I'm actually here at the house making another video for you guys. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We're going to be making an arrowhead out of dichroic glass. Now, dichroic glass is actually a thin piece of glass. It's got a very thin layer of metal bonded to it. It was originally developed by NASA for the space program. But of course, once artists saw how colorful this stuff was, they got their hands on it, and now it's out in the marketplace for all of us. Now, this dichroic glass is incredibly beautiful. Depending on the angle of the light, it refracts back all kinds of different colors, and it is some of the most colorful material out there. I've got some dichroic glass that a friend of mine made for me. If you do make arrowheads out of dichroic glass, this is something I don't recommend beginners do, because dichroic glass is very expensive, and if you don't know what you're doing and you ruin the glass, you're going to be out a good bit of money. And also, there are some parameters that you've got to stay within when you're chipping dichroic glass, so you've got to have a little experience when you're working this stuff, but it makes incredible points once you're done with it. So what we're going to do today is start on a piece of dichroic glass, really colorful. A buddy of mine made this for me, he fused it, and I'll show you guys how to work this stuff. Now, since this was actually fired in a kiln, it doesn't have any sharp angled edges for us to actually get into this piece of glass. So there are two different ways you can do it. You can either put it on a glass grinding belt or a lapidary grinder and grind a flat angle on one edge of it, or you can just knock a flake off of it. Since I don't have a grinder, I'm stuck with the other method. There we go. That's all I needed to do. Now I can get into this piece of glass. Now, one thing we're going to be doing a little different here is, you see I've got this container in between my legs. I'm actually going to save the chips, because this glass, all the waste chips, can be remelted down and essentially just recycled over and over. So that's a really cool thing about this glass, is you can recycle it, so you have essentially no waste. Now that we've got this flake taken off this one corner, it's very similar to what I do with the glass bottle bottoms. Going to essentially just do a zigzag pattern all the way around. We're almost all the way around it now, and this dichroic glass chips essentially the same as any other glass. It's really no different. Now, one tricky thing about dichroic glass is that the color is all contained in a very thin layer of metal that is fused onto the glass that's inside here. Now, this piece of dichro had actually a clear layer of glass fused on top of it to protect the actual color layers, and that allows me to run flakes over the glass and chip it down and not take that thin layer of metal away. If you do that, then you lose all the color. So we got to be real careful when we chip this point, that we've got to try to keep that layer of dichroic metal in the very center of the point along the edges, and not tilt the edge one way or the other. And so you got to be real careful in how you flake this stuff. I'm going to set up a beveled platform to take flakes off of this bottom side, which is the flat side. Taking very short, steep flakes off of this edge to create that beveled edge. And I'm using copper today because I'm saving these glass pieces, and I don't want any chips of antler to actually get into this glass, because when I give it back to my friend Clay to refuse it, I don't want any particles in there that will contaminate the glass. Grind that edge quite heavily. The thing with this dichro is I want these flakes to travel as far as possible with the fewest number of flake removals, because we want to preserve as much of this color as possible. So I'm going to start at this rear corner
That one went almost all the way across. And then move over a little bit and do another one. The same inward and downward motion as I've shown before in my other videos. These flakes are really traveling. I mean, look at that. Almost 2/3 of the way across the face. Now I'm going to flip it over and just do it on the other side. Same thing. It's beautiful. You can see now it's got a parallel flaking scar pattern where all the flakes just meet up in the center and they mirror each other. It looks like ripples of sand. It's beautiful. Now I'm just going to reset the edges to the other side and take another series of flakes off of the clear glass that overlays the colored dichroic. My tool was getting dull, so I had to resharpen it. That's good advice, you guys. Keep all your tools in good working order when you're flint knapping, because you can't make well-formed points if you've got dull, out-of-shape tools. Can't cut down a tree if you got a dull saw either, right? So keep your tools in order. Grinding that edge again to dull it, set up that edge for our next series of flake removals. Beautiful. Flakes are traveling almost all the way across. Now flip it over and just do it. Same thing from the other side. Notice a lot of what I'm taking off there is clear glass. That's that overlaying layer of clear. So I'm not actually removing the dichroic layer, which is exactly what I want. I want to stay away from that, keep that in the center of the point as much as possible, in the center plane of the point. And another series of flakes will be taken off the black side. Thin this point down and further shape it. Getting close now, just doing some very fine work on this edge, just bringing the shape in. Trying to preserve as much color as possible. Got our blank completed. Now all we have to do is the notching and then the final fine shaping of this point, and it'll be done. I think for this one I'm going to do a corner notch. In and down pressure. Now the other side. I'm always rubbing my edge too like this, just to make sure that it's slightly crushed, and that will essentially abrades it and dulls it so that it won't crush when I put the pressure to it. This is the aspect I think that a lot of flint knappers have trouble with, is the notching, and I still have problems with it at times. Wow, look at the colors in that thing, it's incredible. Well, there's the finished dichroic glass arrowhead. Man, I'll tell you, that stuff is pretty, and the camera doesn't even pick up the colors accurately. It's even more intense in person. It's one of those things you just have to see it to believe it. But I've made some rather utilitarian points in past videos, but this one I think is definitely one of the prettiest. So thanks a bunch, you guys, for watching. Hope you enjoyed.